In 1852, a shocking truth emerged about the Oregon Trail. Pioneers were actually deadlier than the people they feared most. While 362 emigrants died from Indian attacks, settlers killed 426 Native Americans. But that wasn't the trail's darkest secret. Buffalo stampedes wiped out entire wagon trains without a trace. One herd of 75,000 animals ran for over an hour, leaving nothing recognizable behind. Medical kits contained more poison than cure. And the real killer? It wasn't what anyone expected. The truth will change everything you thought you knew. The Oregon Trail was not just a road to a new life. For many, it was a slow march into a nightmare. Between 1849 and 1855, cholera turned the westward journey into a rolling graveyard. This invisible killer claimed somewhere between 6,000 and 12,000 lives across all western trails. The year 1852 was the worst of all. More people traveled the trail that year than any other, packing the route so tightly that the disease spread like wildfire. Cholera moved fast. It could take a healthy person in the morning and leave them buried before sundown. George Tribble, who made the journey in 1852, said that for 400 miles, the road was almost a solid graveyard. At one campground, he counted 71 graves. Of his own family's 10 members, only 5 lived to see Oregon. The Friel family's story shows just how ruthless the disease could be. One Oregon Trail expedition of 72 wagons brought along 260 pistols and rifles, nearly a ton of lead, and more than 1,000 pounds of gunpowder. These weapons traveled over rough land for months, often in the hands of people who had never been trained to use them. There were no safety locks, no protective cases, and few understood how easily they could go off. The results were bloody and frequent. In 1849, a man known as Mr. S. pulled his gun from a wagon, cocking it by mistake and shooting Mr. Twitty in the knee. Near Scott's Bluffs, another pioneer died after the pistol in his breast pocket went off, destroying his jaw. In 1850, John Wood described a gruesome moment when a young man named German accidentally fired his weapon. The ball tore through his chest and lodged near his shoulder blade. Wood recalled how the man fell, rolled, screamed, and bled like an animal. He died within hours. Flintlock rifles were among the most dangerous. They had to be carried at half cock with the frizzen closed to hold the priming powder. If the lock mechanism was worn or faulty, the gun could fire at any time. The exhaustion of long days made things worse. Tired travelers handled multiple weapons in crowded camps, creating constant risk. It was not uncommon for people to shoot themselves, their companions, or even their own draft animals. The cruel truth was that keeping rifles unloaded was far safer, but that also meant being defenseless in a sudden attack. This impossible choice created a deadly balance between safety and survival. The Oregon Trail was more than a road to the west. Between 1841 and 1869, it was a test of survival against nature's most violent moods. Weather alone claimed hundreds of lives and left many others with memories so vivid they haunted them for years. Between 1840 and 1860, about 300 emigrants drowned trying to cross them. In 1850 alone, 37 people died at the Green River. There were no dams to tame the current. The Kansas, North Platte, and Columbia rivers ran wild, deep, and unpredictable. A single mistake could kill an entire family. Wagons overturned in the current, oxen panicked, and people were swept away. Wheels jammed in muddy riverbeds like quicksand. In seconds, the water could swallow a wagon whole. And even the safe choice could turn deadly. Ferries charged up to $16 per wagon. That was nearly the cost of an ox, and about 3% of the $500 needed for the entire trip. One ferry operator made $65,000 in a single summer. John B. Hill remembered the day a ferryman overloaded the boat. The water came within 2 inches of spilling over. As they neared the far bank, the boat dipped hard. Hill was certain they would all be drowned. They were lucky. Many others were not. The sound was unlike anything else on the trail. a slow, grinding creak followed by a scream that cut through the wind. Wagon wheels crushing human flesh left a mark not only on the ground, but on the memories of everyone who saw it. These accidents happened again and again during the 2,000-mile journey west, claiming more lives than Native American attacks, wild animals, or even many diseases. They weren't freak events. They were deadly mistakes that kept repeating. The numbers tell the truth. 1 out of every 17 emigrants died along the trail, and wagon accidents were among the top 3 killers, right alongside disease and firearm mishaps. The wagons themselves were monsters on wheels. Fully loaded, they weighed up to 2,500 pounds. They had no brakes, no safety features. Once those iron-rimmed wheels started moving, nothing could stop them. Children often paid the highest price. Many died simply trying to climb aboard while the wagon was in motion. Historians say if the graves were evenly spaced, there would be one every 50 yards from Missouri to Oregon City. Travelers called it progress. In reality, it was the nation's longest graveyard. Most wagon trains moved without a single real doctor. If there was someone claiming to be one, their knowledge was often no better than a neighbor's gossip. Medicine came from old folk remedies and what people called granny medicine. Many of these cures caused more harm than the sickness itself. The medical kits looked more like a dangerous chemistry set. There were physicing pills sold by patent medicine companies, castor oil, whiskey or rum for pain, peppermint oil, quinine for malaria, hartshorn for snake bites, citric acid for scurvy, opium, laudanum, morphine, calomel, and tincture of camphor. The so-called treatments could be just as deadly as the diseases. Dr. Lord's cholera cure, for example, was a mix of laudanum, pepper, camphor, musk, ammonia, and peppermint. If that didn't work, he added mustard plasters and rough rubbing to revive the patient. When these failed, which they often did, death was swift. Cholera alone claimed 1/3 of all lives lost on the trail. It could kill in less than 24 hours. Some families gambled with desperate measures, like making a dying person drink an entire cup of spirits of camphor. Abigail Hathaway King wrote in her diary that her father tried this on someone, and the others thought it would either kill her instantly or somehow cure her. Injuries were just as hopeless. A broken bone meant weeks of pure torment, bouncing in a wagon with no real pain relief. A child who got his leg crushed under the wheels faced amputation or death, with nothing more than whiskey and prayer. Some pioneers carried their own portable apothecary shop, like Catherine Hahn, who relied on opium and whiskey to dull pain. Others, like Elizabeth Gear, trusted a few simple remedies: physicing pills, castor oil, rum, and peppermint essence. These small collections of bottles and powders were no match for the diseases waiting on the trail. Dysentery, smallpox, measles, mumps, typhoid fever, and mountain fever swept through camps with ease, leaving families broken and wagons lighter. If the journey itself didn't kill you, the medicine might. And still, they kept moving west. The truth about violence on the Oregon Trail was nothing like the dramatic scenes in old Western movies. Historian John Unruh's research shows a surprising twist. Between 1840 and 1860, pioneers killed 426 Native Americans, while Native Americans killed 362 emigrants. This means the settlers were actually more deadly than the people they feared, and the myth of constant Indian attacks was mostly a Hollywood invention. Even the danger zones were different from what most expected. 90% of emigrant deaths from Indian attacks happened west of South Pass, mainly along the Snake and Humboldt rivers, in what is now Idaho and Nevada. The first half of the trip, which most people thought was the most dangerous, was actually safe. Then there was a wild and unpredictable power of animals. The threat could come without warning, and in ways that no amount of planning could truly prevent. One of the most feared moments on the trail was a buffalo stampede. Ezra Meeker wrote in 1842, about a night in Wyoming when a herd thundered past his camp. The sound lasted so long it felt like an age. He compared it to the roar of a heavy railroad train passing nearby on a still night. These were not small herds. One stampede was recorded with between 50,000 and 75,000 buffalo running at full speed for over an hour. The ground shook as if the earth itself was alive. The worst account told of 7 wagons and 24 people who were completely wiped out by a stampede. They were trampled into the ground with nothing left that could be recognized. In Nebraska, one group camped directly in the path of a migration in June. Only the rapid firing of rifles and revolvers saved them from certain death. The scale was beyond belief. Witnesses said the herds were thicker than stars in the sky and could leave 50-mile-wide gaps in the landscape. Not all animal dangers came from the wild. Even domestic animals could turn deadly. Stampedes of livestock were the third leading cause of accidents on the trail, after wagon wheels and firearms. G.W. Thistle once saw 250 oxen suddenly bolt in a wild rush, crashing over wagons and killing one man while injuring several others. People were often trampled, kicked, or dragged by oxen, horses, and mules. A startled draft animal could crush a man in seconds. Then there were the snakes. Hundreds of people are believed to have died from snake bites during the trail's busiest years. The route passed through 7 states and 10 different species of venomous snakes. Missouri alone had 5, including timber rattlesnakes, eastern copperheads, and cottonmouths. Medical treatment was crude and often useless. Anna Maria King wrote in 1845 of losing Sally Chambers, John King, his wife, their little girl Electa, and their 9-month-old son. 8 members of 2 families gone in such a short time. And still, the wagons had to roll on. 15 miles each day, every day, for months. The exhaustion was endless, and it wore down more than muscle. It stripped away the will to keep going. Some broke completely. Elizabeth Markham reached the Snake River and refused to take another step. Her husband had no choice but to leave her with their son while he pressed on with the rest of the children. He sent the boy back for her, but when she returned, she said she had beaten him with a rock. The husband ran back to find the boy barely alive. In that moment of chaos, Elizabeth set fire to one of their wagons. It was a chilling glimpse into how the trail could twist a mind beyond recognition. Fear was constant. One traveler wrote that it became the main emotion on the trail, the one that seemed to decide who lived and who died. Every day brought new threats, spoiled food, foul water, sudden sickness. It was a life where danger could not be escaped, only endured. The Oregon Trail was not just a road to the west, it was a moving community of grief. Wagon trains became rolling cemeteries, burying loved ones quickly and riding on, knowing that 9 out of 10 deaths came from diseases that gave no warning. The living carried those images with them, mile after mile, until the end of the trail, or until the trail ended them. The Oregon Trail was more than a road to a new life. For many, it became a path to tragedy. 1 in every 5 women on the trail was either pregnant or gave birth during the journey. What should have been moments of joy often turned into moments of loss. On the Mormon Trail alone, between 1847 and 1868, 330 infants were born. 42 of them died in their first 28 days. 19 never even made it past the day they were born. Conditions for childbirth were brutal. Women had no chance to rest. The wagons kept moving, whether a mother had just given birth or not. Many were forced to walk or ride in bone-jarring wagons only hours after labor, bleeding and weak. Medical help was almost non-existent. Out of 79 references to childbirth in pioneer diaries, only 5 mentioned a midwife. Most women gave birth with only the help of other women in the wagon train, if they had them at all. Elizabeth Paul's story captures the heartbreak. On July 27, 1862, she gave birth to her 8th child while crossing western Wyoming. She died soon after. Her baby daughter, also named Elizabeth, lived only 1 week before dying too. Both were buried far from home, under the shade of a pine tree.